So I don't think we've done this artist yet. So correct the player if I'm wrong. You know, the age stuff at my age, the memory starts to go. So step in if we haven't. But I turned over to my giant wall of CDs because yes, I still collect those. And one stood out, and I could not believe that we haven't discussed this yet. My nomination is Boyz II Men.
Woo! We haven't done that one yet?
Now,
no, we haven't.
I don't think we have. And it's crazy because their catalog is insane. They, in my opinion, are the premier artists of the 90s. Their debut was like almost diamond. You've got Two, their second album, which caught my eye. One of the greatest, maybe the greatest R&B album of the 90s. That one went diamond. Then you had some of their kind of like underrated albums. Evolution was very good that people seem to forget. And their fourth album wasn't bad either. Now, if we get into recent releases, things get really suspect because, whoo boy, that Collide album. We can just skip over that. But from front to back, when you talk about one of the most influential artists of all time, some of the greatest vocals of all time, greatest vocalists, some of the classic songs that have come out of that era, artists who defined an era, you don't get any bigger or better than Boyz II Men. To me, they are first ballot, surefire Hall of Famers. So, somebody disagreement with me so they can catch all these hands.
Well, does the fact that their catalog over the past, how long has it been? Over 10 years, 15 years, maybe even. They've done some. They did some cover albums and stuff, and they've had their album recently that came out. You mentioned it, Collide, but realistically, they only had one. Was it Full Circle in 2002, and then that was it for. No, they had some other originals. I'm sorry, but have any of them really been that good? Like, has that tarnished them at all? The fact that they haven't had any classics past, say, the early 90s or mid 90s.
I mean, that's a fair question. I don't think it hurts them because when you have an album like Two on your resume, an album like that monumental, I think that that's enough. Now, there is, you don't want somebody who just kind of one-hit wonders it, and they clearly did not. But they dominated an entire decade, and most people these days can't dominate 6 months. So the work they put in then is enough for 5 or 6 careers. So it doesn't bother me so much that later in their career when they had the roster changes and people bowing in and out of illness and then horrible albums later on, because it doesn't tarnish what they did before. So to me, it doesn't bother me at all.
Oh boy.
So what?
Are you done, Tom?
Well, I was going to say, I think they're an obvious yes. I always like to just play the other side of the coin. But yeah, they're in for me.
I don't think they're an obvious yes. I'm going to give them a yes. But here's my thing.
Please tell me why they are not an obvious yes player. Please, the floor is yours.
Okay, here's my thing. So I'm only putting them into the Hall of Fame for the same reason that Toni Braxton is in the Hall of Fame. They've had 2 very strong albums. Their debut and their second one. Which I don't think... if we're looking at numbers, we can call them classics, but I don't think either of them is a classic in terms of quality.
You don't think the second album is a classic?
No.
Ashanti fan.
No.
You don't think that album is a classic? Mr. Still Waiting on Mario to release an album. Oh my goodness. Let me get a sip of this water.
Ballads are good on that album. Ballads are very good on that album. Trying Times, one of my favorites off that album. But those up-tempos, boy, no good. No bueno. And then, can we also acknowledge the fact that their burnout rate was faster than anyone I've ever seen? 1997, the Evolution album, that's not a good album. Was that a good album? It was okay, but I don't think it was great by any stretch. And then the albums after...
it wasn't... It wasn't as good as 2, but that's the Thriller effect. Like, once you put out a Thriller, everything is going to be like, well, it's not Thriller. It's the Illmatic effect. Nothing is not as good as Illmatic, but what is? It was a fine album. I liked Evolution.
It sounded like...
That's the one with Doing Just Fine, right?
Yeah, but there were some songs on there that sounded like a very cheap version of 112.
Oh, man. Oh, man.
Which isn't bad, but, like... They're the influencers, yet they sound like the influenced.
Well, I can give you that, because that's really an issue a lot of kind of maturing artists start to have. They start trying to sound like everybody else. Just ask Tank. We were just talking about that earlier.
And then from what I remember on that Evolution album, wasn't like the first half ballads, which is what everyone listened to, and then once you got to the second half of it where the up-tempos happened, you just like didn't bother to listen to it anymore? Or was that just me?
I do remember, I'm like looking at the track list, and a lot of these are ballads up at the top.
Yep.
I mean, yeah, you might be right. But again, the album is still solid. I don't know where we're getting at this.
Same deal with the second album. First half was okay. It was only the second half that saved it.
I have never heard a human being say that the Boyz II Men second album was okay. My God.
And how many classics does Chris Brown have, Kyle?
Please let me know.
Hey guys, we talked about Chris Brown last week. We don't need to go back to that. But let's continue on with their discography. Wasn't the Nathan, Michael, Sean, and Wanye album like the biggest disappointment known to mankind?
No, it wasn't. It wasn't great, but again, it wasn't horrid. We didn't start getting to the bad albums. See, I got to pull up their discography, because we didn't start getting to the bad albums till more recently.
Okay. So, I just wanted to bring that up. I felt like they started off strong, and they had definite classics. You can't even deny that. They have a lot of classics under their belt, but it wasn't as strong as people make it out to be in terms of their discography.
Oh my.
That's all I'm saying.
Gosh. Well, you go back and listen to Ashanti Chapter 2, since you don't like Boyz II Men's 2 album, and tell me which one is better.
Actually,
All Baby is better than Water Runs Dry. Oh my God.
Actually, I think Ashanti wrote a song tributed to Boyz II Men on that Chapter 2 album. Do you know which song?
Please enlighten me to this song.
1 minute you're here, the next you're gone.
Oh.
I'm sorry, I love Boyz.
I cannot. I
do
can't
like Boyz II
wait
Men.
until your mentions are burned down. You think Tinashe got it bad last week?
Ooh, well, shout outs to all the listeners. But anyway, Boyz II Men. I would like to say that I did give them a yes, because I do like a lot of their songs. But anyways, they are in the Hall of Fame, so they are in the Hall of